Luke Aldersley wrote into us and said, "Hey there, my beautiful slitterbugs. When I was a wee boy growing up in Rady, England, I would always be looking forward to the next birthday or Christmas, for it was the only time I would get a new game outside of using the local game store's trade-in schemes. I feel now that I am a young adult and I have lost that same excitement because I have the disposable income to purchase whatever I want, whenever I want to play something. Do you guys also miss the overwhelming excitement that would come as a young gamer with limited access? There was always something special to opening the new game on a birthday." I feel like you guys could both relate to this. I'm especially curious, Dustin, to hear what you have to say first, because I know you're really into physical game collecting right now, and probably will be for the foreseeable future, maybe forever. But there is something to say about, there's like a meme that I see sometimes where it's like, you remember playing Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and you think back and you think it's like a really happy time, but the kid thinks back and his like parents are fighting in the background, and like there's like all this crazy shit happening, and we let nostalgia paint over the way things used to be sometimes, because we think about things being old and we think about things the way they used to be. There is something really awesome about this idea that, listen, kid, you have one shot at this. You better get the game that you want. You have no do-overs, and this is going to be the game that is your life for like the next 2 months or something. And there was something funny about getting to know games like that. I played games unnecessarily like during that era. In this era about trophies. Right, exactly. You'd play anything. And there's something about that. Once you have the disposable income, which by the time I went to college, it's like, all right, I'll buy, even in high school, it's like, I'll buy any game I want because I have a job. It's fine. At that point, it did start to lose. I'd buy games and not even play them. That happened all the time. I have a lot of unopened games on PS2, Dreamcast, GameCube, probably some PS1 stuff, like, because like all my money just went to this shit. I had no reason to save it otherwise. And I mean, in hindsight, there was many reasons to save it, but in my mind, my fucking 12-year-old mind, there was no reason to save any of this money. And so, or, at 18-year-old during the PS2 era. So I just feel like, I'm curious what you think about this idea of losing that magical feeling of finding the right game. I think it's, the grass is always greener though, because like, why would you ever miss having to be pigeonholed into things? Like, you have the flexibility to play the very best or whatever you want to play at any given time. And I wouldn't exchange that for the world personally. Right.
Well, it's funny. I've thought about this before, that when you're a kid, you have the same few games and think, man, I have nothing to play right now. And now, as an adult, as Luke writes in, is that we have access to everything. And it's not just from a financial perspective. If you have PS Plus, you have all those games. If you have Game Pass or PlayStation Plus Extra, whatever, there's literally thousands of games at my fingertips without even me spending money right now, right? And often I feel like I have nothing to play, just like when I was a kid and I only had access to 6 games or something like that. So it is interesting that there's this, at least for me, with having so much access, I get analysis paralysis really bad, where I'm always thinking about, okay, what game am I going to get the most enjoyment from right now? What is the best use of my time? And I will think so critically about that I may not end up playing anything sometimes, or I'll just decide to watch something stupid on YouTube or whatever. So there's definitely something lost, or some kind of specialness. Like I've talked about on the show, the day I opened Dragon Ball Z Budokai that Christmas is one of the best memories I've ever had, getting a PlayStation 2 one Christmas. It was a used PlayStation 2. It came with, I can't remember the game. I think it had Armageddon on DVD, and it was awesome. There's few moments in life that I can think of where at that moment, based on my circumstance at the time, that I was more happy the day. I can remember them all vividly in my head. The day I got a Wii, right? Like, that was an amazing day too, because we were searching for it for so long. And now thinking about, I remember the day I got my PlayStation 5, but it was, I don't know, some guy brought it in a box, and there was no struggle behind finding it, at least, which I know some people may have that experience. There's no struggle behind finding it, no struggle with the money aspect of it, no struggle with the games. It just kind of showed up and I could enjoy it. And I think that they're, like you said, Colin, this is the preferred way, but you do miss out on those extreme highs of getting that game or that console.
There was certainly something quaint about going to Toys R Us and picking a ticket off the shelf and then bringing it to the desk and exchanging it, or going into KB and seeing, I mean, I remember seeing like NES and SNES games just stacked up, and you would just see, you can only see them from afar and you weren't quite sure what they were, and you would ask to maybe see a few of them, and you would kind of annoy people because you couldn't get a good look at things. There's something definitely quaint and fun about that, but it's the same as like fantasizing about going to an old hardware store. Yeah, that's kind of cool, but the reality is that's inconvenient, expensive,
yeah, and
they don't have anything you're looking for. And yeah, so what do you think, Chris?
I don't know. I feel like it's I feel like it's actually a lot more complicated than it seems. I feel like, you know, I think about some of those moments, like getting my first Xbox, you know, and I got it from a military base because my dad was in the Army, and so we got it at the PX tax free. But it was awesome, and I remember coming home and playing, you know, I think the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man game on it, and it was like the happiest shit ever. And Budokai was another one where I was just over the moon, and even just like being in Arizona during Halo 3's launch and not being able to play it and like seeing it on the news and just being like, oh my god, I can't, why am I here? This sucks. And then I went home and it was in a GameFly sleeve in my mailbox, and I was just over the moon. Like, I remember these moments like very, very vividly. But I also feel like when I think back to when, even as unceremonious as when I got my PS5, I think about breaking into that other building to get it out of the get it off from in front of that guy's door. And I remember, and this feels insane to say, but I don't really know how else to describe it. There are certain memories that have, I don't want to say flavors necessarily, but it's like a combination of all the sights and sounds and sensations and emotional, like, you know, states that are happening in that moment that grant like really intense nostalgia that you can only feel when you're looking back on it. Like right now, I know there is some mental flavor happening, but I'm not going to know what that is until I think back to now. And I feel like learning to connect with what makes those things special, it allows me to kind of continuously feel that. I still feel that about like when I got my Switch, even though it was not a Christmas morning, you know, and I think back to the idea that, you know, I mean, we think back to what our favorite games were and how harsh we would be on those games if they were to come out today. Like Pokemon Silver and Gold were my favorite things ever. I still honestly don't think I've had a more pure video game experience at just pure joy than I did playing those games specifically. And it's because they came out when I was young and dumb and I just had no responsibilities. It's why most people's favorite bands were the bands they listened to in high school. And even though I found music that I like more than my favorite bands, that's still my favorite band still, because it's associated with a time where it's just, I had nothing to worry about. Even the things that I was stressed about, not even close to the shit.
It's comical when you think about it.
It's hilarious,
back on it, right? Isn't it? I agree.
And so, like, I don't know. I think nostalgia is fun and it's nice, but I also think a lot of these, like, missing these memories is just kind of associated with just how much more we have to do as people, as adults. And I think that joy is still there. I think you just have to learn how to like tune out all the other stuff. And it's totally there for you. I've had so much fucking fun on like Sea of Thieves, you know, because I'm able to just shut my brain off and kind of like get into my bubble. And it's exactly the same kind of sensations that I had playing, you know, Halo back in the day or playing Pokemon. It's the same things. It's just a matter of like being able to kind of meditate yourself into that state where you're not bogged down by anything. I know that was a lot more ranty and tangential than probably the question.
No, it's all good. I mean, I think nostalgia is, first of all, it's one of my favorite topics. But I also think, do you know when you see a piece of nostalgia or something, not a piece of nostalgia, but something from your own life and it almost knocks you back or like takes your breath away and you're like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Like I see a picture of someone from like that I pull out or like an old letter or whatever. And it's like, you remember. There was this thing going around. I don't know if you guys saw it recently of this kid turning on, or this man turning on his Game Boy Color and finding and showing it to his son, and on the Game Boy, for the Game Boy camera, was a picture of his dog in 1999. That would be like the kind of thing that would bury me 25 feet under the ground if I saw something like that. That is a meta level of nostalgia going so many layers deep, and that's the good shit.
Yeah.
It's like the save file. See, it's not. Wild Arms itself is very nostalgic to me, but it would be like finding my old memory card and having the save file from 1997. That's the nostalgia. That's the magic, in my opinion.